Welcome to 20 Minute Tabletop, a podcast sharing the love of all things tabletop gaming in bite-sized pieces. I'm your host, John Wicke, here today with my co-host, Stevie.
During QuestCon, John had the opportunity to interview several creators and vendors on the show floor. These wonderful folks include everything from game designers, to shop owners, to comic creators. We're excited to be able to bring you these short interviews in this bonus episode so you can hear directly from these creatives yourself.
I'm here live from the floor with Space Penguin Inc. Talk about the games that they offer here for you. So can you tell me a little about yourself and what kind of games you're offering?
Hi, I'm Jarrett with Space Penguin Inc., and we have all kinds of modules for existing systems like Mothership, Sci-Fi Horror RPG, Troika, Science Fantasy RPG, Forbidden Psalm, which is one of our main lines, which is a skirmish miniatures, demoing it right behind you. Listeners at home, they can't see me pointing right behind. And yeah, we just make a lot of stuff for small tabletops and small games and stuff like that. I mean, we do a little bit of stuff for 5e here and there too. And DCCs, which is probably one of my favorite lines.
I love the smaller games and the smaller indie RPGs and like the people who create the content for those. That I really enjoy that. So what's your inspiration and what's that process like for you creating those things?
So I've been playing RPGs since 1983. I had the cool uncle. I lucked out, and the cool uncle taught me how to play basic, like Magenta Box, really great Errol Otis cover on it. And then I played a lot in high school and early college. Then I kind of disappeared and played board games for about 15 years. And then about 12 years ago, I got back into playing RPGs when a friend was running some 4E D&D. And then when we were playing games that were combats were taking upwards of 2 and 3 hours, which, I mean, there's a time and a place. He was running a module from a company called Lumen Games. Some of your listeners know them as the people who put out DCC RPG. And it was the year that DCC RPG was released, 2012. And I was like really intrigued. And so I did a quick Google search and I discovered the Google Plus community and lucked into that and the OSR and, playing a lot of old school rules. Honestly, the best part about being in games and working in games is just playing games. I game like morning, noon, and night. If I'm not playing a game on my tablet, which I was when I wasn't using the POS, my girlfriend and I, Debbie's the co-owner of the company, we play board games like at lunch. We play board games at dinner. We have friends over. I play with these nerds all the time here. I'm pointing at Jeremy and Matt. Every week I get up at 7 a.m. on Wednesdays to play OD&D with folks in the U.S. and England and Singapore. So yeah, I just really like games.
That's very cool. So this is going to lead perfectly to the next question. We're asking everyone for the recommendation. So it can be board game, RPG, card game, whatever you want. Give us your recommendations for the listeners and for us as well.
Possibly my favorite game of all time is the Jaws board game. It was published by Ravensburger, premiered at Gen Con right pre-pandemic, and it is designed by a group called Prospero Hall. They also created Villainous, which a lot of people might know. Anyway, the Jaws board game, it's a masterclass in game design. You can pick it up for like $17-18 at Target. I cannot stress highly enough how everyone out there in the world should pick it up. Super easy to play. It's an all versus one. One person's the shark, and the other three are Hooper and Quint and Brody. Double-sided, so the first part is the action that takes place on Amity, and the second part is the battle board, the Orca. See, I've already... You're going to go buy a copy now, right?
Oh, that's right up our alley. I'm definitely going to look that up. And I love that because sometimes they get overlooked just because it has IP on it. People think it's just going to be slapped together game. And I love that there are some that are a lot of fun. Just because they have IP on it doesn't mean they're not a great game.
Absolutely, yeah. And this one, Prospero Hall really does great stuff. And the Jaws game is, it's a must buy.
Okay, and if our listeners want to find out more about your games or connect with you, how can they do that?
They can find us on all the socials at Space Penguin Inc. That's INK. And our website is spacepenguin.ink.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Thanks.
Hi, I am here live from the vendor floor with
Jeremy Childry.
I was trying to read that and I was like, can you tell me a little bit about what games you guys have to offer here and what you've created and who you are?
My name is Jeremy. I'm the owner of Gordinaak Games and Dank Dice. I've got some sci-fi horror offerings and kind of a joke in a book form here. Last February, we kickstarted Dive, and with it comes From the Deepest Trenches in Chum. It's an aquatic horror system used to play stuff like Deep Blue Sea, The Abyss, things like that. Last year I came here with Gordinaak and I was giving out copies and stuff like that, so I decided to come back and sell some. And it is kind of like a sci-fi horror, horrors of war, Necromunda style setting with panic effects and stuff like that. And all of these are compatible with Mothership RPG if any of the listeners are familiar with that.
Very cool. So what is it like creating games? Like, what's your inspiration, or what's that process like to create something like this?
So I think it kind of spawns out of like playing some of the more mainstream stuff and seeing things that I would like to just have in the book form. Essentially, I just kind of filled the niche that I was looking for to be filled for myself. The process is tough, arduous. It's a long road, but getting things done and having them out there is a pretty good feeling.
We're asking everyone for their recommendations today. So what would you like to recommend in the world of tabletop? Whether it's a board game, an RPG, card game, something that our listeners should check out and that maybe we should check out and do an episode on.
I think that Mothership RPG, Troika RPG are both really innovative and kind of on the forefront of what I think should be happening in games. I really wish some of the bigger names would look down at us and see what we're doing, and I think they'd be benefited from taking some of these design aspects and incorporating into these more mainstream and more accessible games.
Very cool. If our listeners want to find out more about your games or connect with you, how can they do that?
I'm at Gordinaak Games on all platforms, or Jeremy Childry if you can find me that way.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, I am here with the creators of Lumen Void to talk to them about their game. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what your game is that you're offering here?
Hello, I'm Brandon Jonas, self-publisher and designer of Lumen Void. Started out as just a neat little hobby, wanted to get games going, made our own little game nights and situations fun. I actually was a card or poker dealer at a casino where I learned how to play poker. Had some little brothers who had trouble learning the game, so made some adjustments, made the game a little bit easier to learn and teach them, and then put a story behind it and started designing and developing my own game. So that's kind of where it started and where it's going.
That's a lot of fun. I mean, this is one that my daughter absolutely loves playing. She's really quite good at ever since we got this last year here at QuestCon. What was that process like to create your game for yourself like this?
In terms of creating, it definitely had different aspects of going through it. The good part is my inspiration was there. You had everything in terms of enjoyment and starting with the poker or card aspect that I was very familiar with. Then from there it just became on what story do you want, what interests you have, what interests do you think kids will have, what mechanics are fun for kids, what mechanics are fun for adults. Putting it all together and really just playtesting it until you found what you enjoyed and what everyone else enjoyed.
Okay, so today we're asking everyone for their recommendations. So what would you like to recommend in the world of tabletop? Be it a board game, a card game, an RPG? Your recommendations for our listeners to check out and maybe for us to do an episode on.
I would say a very friendly family game is Codenames. That's my go-to with any groups above 5 or 6, especially if there's children involved because you can team up and work together. It allows for everyone to be involved. In terms of a little bit smaller group and a little bit older, like college age, I like Coup. It's COUP. That one involves a little bit more lying and deceit, but not everyone has to lie in order to get the game done. So those were kind of my go-tos in terms of gaming.
And if our listeners want to find out more about your game or connect with you, how can they do that?
You can find us at lumenvoid.com or at our Instagram or YouTube. Those are just at Lumen Void. Our company name is Odanas Games, Odanas. That is for our YouTube channel.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, we are here now with Enterprizes to talk about what they have in the space of role-playing games. So why don't you tell me about who you are and what you're offering here?
My name is Mark Mekas. I come from a variety of creative endeavors. Been a cartoonist, a writer, and lately I've kind of gotten into some role-playing production. I've created a game called Steam Spies. Steam Spies started as a 2-player kind of card game. My goal was, I didn't have a lot of friends. I wanted to role play, so I wanted to create something that could be played with 2 people without a game master. So it started off as this kind of one-on-one spy versus spy game. And since then, I've evolved it into a full-fledged role-playing game. You can play it with Game Master and a group, like a traditional role-playing game. You can still play that one-on-one without a Game Master. You can also play it cooperatively without a Game Master. And I've even included solo rules, which has kind of become its own genre lately as well. That is kind of my biggest seller. This year, I just also introduced a game called Astro Venture, which is a very, very streamlined, simplistic, retro sci-fi kind of game, kind of Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon-y kind of flavor. Very simple, very easy entry type of thing.
Very cool. This is kind of might be a little bit of a big question, but what was it like making your own game? What was that like? What was that process like for you?
Good question. It was, like I say, I was kind of aching for some sort of role-playing experience. This was kind of before, virtual tabletops kind of took off, so I couldn't get that. I was out of college. I didn't have that friend group. So this at least gave me something to pour that energy into and evolve and play. Having the solo mode especially was something that I could really dive in and play test and get used to it and work. And there's, I don't know, probably familiar with Ironsworn. They have a phrase that they use, prep is play. And that I think that really applied to game production in this case. Prepping it was part of the fun. It's just creating the stuff and coming up with ideas and trying it out. It was play.
We always like to get recommendations. So for our listeners, or maybe for us for an episode, what board game would you recommend, or RPG, or card game, anything in the world of tabletop, what would you recommend to our listeners and for us as well?
I've recently been playing a game called Household, which is by Two Little Mice. They're the same guys that did Broken Compass, if you're familiar with that. But the premise is you play little creatures, fairies, sprites, brownies, those types of things. The entire world exists in a single Victorian house that's been abandoned. Each room is a different nation, so each nation kind of carries the flavor of what it is. So the bathroom is very nautical, the dining room is very elegant, the living room is very homey and earthy, the basement is dark and mysterious. And there are several cities within each nation, and you just go on these adventures, and the monsters are pretty much ordinary things, mice or spiders, that sort of thing. It really takes the mundane and makes it fantastic.
That's really cool. It sounds very interesting. So if our listeners want to check out your games or connect with you, how can they do that?
All of my games are available on DriveThruRPG. You can do PDFs, of course, or print on demand through them.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm here now with Adventures on Tap, live from the vendor and creator floor at QuestCon. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what they have to offer for you.
My name's Garrett. I'm one of the DMs with Adventures on Tap. We are a local Orlando group that goes around to different breweries in the area, and our ticket sales, as well as any raffle we do, all that money goes to local Orlando charities, where over the course of the last year, we've raised over $10,000 for all local charities in Orlando. And basically, you get a ticket to the event, sit down, grab a beer. They've already got characters made. They've already got the game planned out. Your job is to sit down and just enjoy D&D and enjoy a nice beer. It's fully family friendly. You can bring kids too. Everybody's welcome, and it's definitely a great time, and I highly encourage anybody I talk to come check it out.
That's very cool. So what kind of games do you offer? Do you offer anything beyond D&D and just all tabletop RPGs, or how does that work?
So it all depends on what the DMs that volunteer for us, what they run. Most of the time we're running 5e campaigns, but we have an event coming up on the 29th of November for Halloween. It's a Halloween event, and we definitely have someone running Call of Cthulhu. And so if someone who's a DM signs up and says, hey, I can run 7th Sea, they'll go, okay, cool, and they'll make it an option so that when you go to buy your ticket, you hit the drop-down menu and you can pick between the different games that are being played. And we're even integrating, coming up soon, campaigns. So we have 5 sessions, a session 0 for you to sit and build your character with everyone else at the table, and then play out the other 4 games as a full campaign. We're going to see how that tracks with everyone. If they're interested in it, we'll keep doing it. If not, we'll go back to one-shots. We'll see what happens.
That's very cool. And so we're a tabletop podcast, everything tabletop. So what could you recommend to us? So recommend for our listeners either an RPG or even a board game or card game to pick up and play, or maybe one that we should do an episode on.
Well, one RPG that I just recently found out about that I'm very excited about, it's called Morkborg. I don't know if you've heard of it or gone over it before, but the fact that it's just this dark and abyssal craziness has just blown my mind ever since I've heard about it. I've been going around here trying to find someone who has a book to try and get it, because I definitely want to learn it and run it for Adventures on Tap, because I think it's the perfect format for a one-shot. Because you have your character, all right, here we go, and I tried to fight someone, now I'm dead. Now roll a new character. All right, let's go again. So that one I'm very excited about, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about it.
I have heard of it. I have not played that one. We've gone to some more of the darker ones, like we're playing Brynwood Bay, which is not really dark, but it's Murder, She Wrote meets Call of Cthulhu. We're looking at running some Delta Green, and I saw a Vass in here that I wanted to get, which is Nordic horror, but somebody bought it before I could buy the book from Crafty Gamer. So it's a Nordic horror. And then they also had a Mythic Britain and Ireland book to go with it. So it was pretty cool sounding. Okay, and so how can people find out more about Adventures on Tap, either finding you online, to get tickets to come join you, or just to meet up with you guys on the socials?
Yeah, we have a website. It's aotorlando.com. On there, you can link to our Discord, our link tree, where you can find us on Facebook, Instagram. I think we have a TikTok as well. We post about every single event we have. Tickets are on the website, and you can buy them straight through the website using PayPal, credit cards. I think we take Cash App as well, Square Pay, whatever you need, we can facilitate it. And we look forward to seeing people come out and join us and having a good time drinking some beer and playing some crazy D&D.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I do love the Discord because every month you guys show how much you've raised and for what charity it's going. So it's kind of cool getting to be able to see that.
One of the big things we're stressing is we're being transparent, because there are definitely organizations that have been out there that have, you don't know where the money's going. So we're being very transparent, letting everyone know, yes, these are all going to charities. They're all getting where they need to go. People are benefiting from this. Direct benefit. Last year, the local Orlando animal shelter, their roof collapsed. And so we were able to add them as one of our charities, and we were able to raise enough money for them to rebuild their roof so that the animals had a nice, safe place to stay. So you can definitely see it in the people we work with. The passion is there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Not a problem, man. You have a great day.
Hi, I'm here now with Tia to talk about her game, Flower Garden. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your game that we have here?
Hi, so I like to make board games sometimes, and Flower Garden is one of my board games that I created. It is a set collection game where you collect set of flowers in your garden and you get to sabotage your neighbor.
That's very cool. What other games do you have? It sounds like you have some other game you might have made.
Yeah, I do. I have Stray Cats, and I have some other games that I did back in those days. They just wasn't successful, and I played with my board game designer group, and I need to go back and refine them in order to make some character balance.
That's very cool. So can you tell me more about how you play Flower Garden?
Sure. So Flower Garden has a flower queen. I have two versions for the game. Basically, the version that says first-time gardeners and expert gardeners. The first-time gardeners is a short demo in order to learn how to play the game before actually going to play with the flower queen, who's a little bit complicated and tricky to play because she has two different personality, and she will go from a different player to a different player, and you just turn the card and then she turns into the weed queen, and then she's the flower queen and the weed queen at the same time. It's kind of hard to explain, but she's a little bit complicated.
That's very cool. I like the idea that there's a easier version to play first to get the mechanics down, and then the more complex version. So what was it like making your own game? I'm intrigued by this process. A little bit of a big question, but what was it like making your own game and getting to create something like this?
Actually, I'm very creative in some way, and I always like to create something. I've been playing board games for as long as I remember. My older sister introduced it to me. We played Monopoly, of course, and when I found out that there are different board games besides Monopoly, there's a whole new world of board game, I was I want to make my own too, and that's how I started to make Warriors, my first game, and other games based on the games that I liked, but they don't have the components or the characters that I want, and then I just tweak it a little bit and then change this and that, and then just create my first board game after that. And that's how I wanted to create more than just one game. I want a simple version of game like Stray Cat. It's 5 to 10 minutes gameplay, and it's 3 minutes to learn the game. And then I wanted something more complicated like Flower Garden. It has more, I would say, strategy in it that you can think and win. You can actually collab with your teammates to destroy one garden and then betray the teammate that you collab with in order to win the game. So there's a lot going on in Flower Garden.
I know you said you play a lot of board games, so can you recommend a board game for our listeners, or maybe one that we should do an episode on?
I really like Santorini. That's one of my to-go board game that I like. And I like Grim Masquerade. I like those two the most.
Very cool. So if our listeners want to find out more about your game or connect with you, how can they do that on the web or social media and things like that?
Oh, you can follow me on social media. It's flowersflame_designer, or you can go to the website flowergarden.flowersflame.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the flowers flame, there's an S between flowers and flame. Just saying. Thank you.
Thank you. We're live here from the floor with Topodog, and so let's tell me a little bit about who you are and what games you're offering.
Hi, we're Topodog, and we're offering deck builders. We've got 2 deck builders and a rummy-style party game, most of which are themed around kind of retro arcade games. So we have the Anarcade 8-bit rummy. It's a 2 to 4 player game for casual families and parties, and it's all themed around retro arcade titles. We have an Arcade Gold, which is a deck builder where you're trying to fill up an arcade. It's got parodies and mashups, and if you're familiar with old arcade games, you'll love it. And we have a 2-player mech combat game called Wreck-A-Mech, where you're competing to make the best mech that you can out of scrap, mash it into the opponent, and the more parts that you knock off, the better parts you get to buy for next turn.
We've played a couple of these, and Wreck-A-Mech is very huge in the house with my son of playing that one, and the rummy he enjoys as well. So we have not played the arcade one yet, but we do own it, so we're looking forward to playing that.
So great to hear. I'm really happy to hear he likes Wreck-A-Mech. That's amazing.
So what was it like making your own card game? Bit of a big question, but the light version of it.
That was the fun part, honestly. Like, it's an iterative process, so you have an idea in your head, and you say, hey, let's make this happen. And when it starts out, it's like, okay, well, I've got this brilliant plan. It's going to work. And then as you go, you realize, you know what? That doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. A lot of times the game you end up with at the end isn't at all what you had in your head when you started, but it's exciting to see it happen. It's really organic, and it's, I don't know, it's cool. It's like, neat to see it come together. That's all.
So we like to look for recommendations. So recommendations for our listeners or for us to maybe do an episode on. So what in the world of either, anyone tabletop, so board games, RPGs, card games, what would you recommend to our listeners to check out and try?
Well, right now we're trying the Pandemic Legacy Day 1 with our group, and it's a big hit. It's neat that it's kind of Cold War, and it doesn't feel like you're fighting viruses, but it's just really cool. And just catchphrase for a party game, like casual, everyone likes catchphrase. Just One is a casual party game where you're trying to get people to guess a word by writing down one word. It's great. Anyone can play it. It works well in mixed groups.
Very cool. So if our listeners want to find out more about your games, maybe get them themselves, where can they find you online, on social media, future cons you might have coming up?
It's all on topodog.com. It's topodog.com.
Thank you so much. This is John Wiki here, and I am live from QuestCon here, recording with the Haven Games with Matthew. And we're here to talk about what they're doing here at QuestCon. So why don't you tell me a little about yourself and what you guys are doing here today?
So we are here at QuestCon. We are running their game library. So we have our rental shelf that we have at the store. We have just picked it up and moved it here, as well as some games for sale. We are also running multiple demo tables throughout the day, where we are rotating certain games in and out. We're trying to do a mix of like the new hot titles / also some sleeper hits that we think are some things that might have gone unnoticed or things that people might have glossed over because they're like, oh, well, that's not my style of game, and we think that maybe it might be, or it's something that you would have enjoyed, but you kind of passed over it just because you saw the cover and you were like, not for me. So we are doing exactly what we try to do in store, which is trying to expose people to more games, get them more into the hobby. We've had a lot of people that have stopped by in the weekend that have been in, they're playing miniatures games, and this is like one of the first few board games they've played, or they're playing RPGs and they're like, oh, I've seen this board game, like maybe spread out and do something else in the tabletop hobby. So we are just trying to spread the good word of board games and the things that we enjoy.
So I see you do have a very large selection here. Is there anything that's been a little more popular getting played here from the library, or just ones that you've seen a lot of people really enjoying here?
Probably some of the hottest stuff. We've had a lot of people check out Flamecraft, which if you've been anywhere with your finger near the pulse of board gaming, you've heard of Flamecraft. So that one's been pretty hot. We've had a lot of people check out Ahoy, which is done by the same people that did Root. So that's a really nice, another asymmetric. You've got some dice rolling, action selection, all that kind of stuff. Thunder Road Vendetta has been a big title. We had multiple copies on day one. We sold out of it on day one. We had the first 3 people that demoed it just immediately went and bought it, including one guy who just bought the expansion as well. He was like, I like this game enough, I'm just going all in, which is pretty common with board gamers. We like to just dive all the way in. You play a game that you really love and then you just slam it all down. Clank Catacombs has been checked out a few times. You guys got to play Unmatched Brains and Brawn recently. That's another one that's been checked out a few times as well. But I think a lot of people are just all over the place. They're just trying out a lot of stuff because right now during the con, all the rentals are free. We're just trading people's ID for the game. So, there's no harm in just trying it out, playing a few rounds and going like, not for me. Go to another game. This one's great. We'll finish the game. That kind of thing. So, yeah, there's been a lot of variety. But, yeah, I think some of the hot titles, Flamecraft, Thunder Road Vendetta, Ahoy, Clank Catacombs, those have been some of the top checkouts.
We played Flamecraft yesterday as well, and it's one of those that we heard a couple of times, and actually Carlos from the Crafty Gamer last time we were there, interviewing him for the podcast, I asked him his recommendation, and his recommendation was Flamecraft. So we're like, well, we got to play that if it's here, and we played that one out. That was fun. Brains and Bronze was a lot of fun. It's on the list of my son wants to buy because of that. So we had a lot of fun playing the different games here, and just getting to try them out is definitely a really cool thing. And like I said, being able to just, hey, here's my idea and let me try any of these games is just a fantastic way to do it, to try those new games out to see, do you want to buy it? Is it going to be a little complex? Is it going to be a lot lot of fun. And honestly, just having all you there, and then you guys even have, I highly recommend the exit game, I think, over there? The Advent Calendar. Stevie had that last year. You guys had the new one, so I immediately bought that yesterday. So now she already has her Advent Calendar for the end of the year as well. So we're all set there. We're a tabletop podcast, so we like to go for recommendations. So do you have a recommendation of a game? It can be board game, RPG. What is your recommendation for our listeners, or even for that you think we should do an episode on?
I feel somewhat obligated. I am wearing my I Activate Mechatol Rex Twilight Imperium shirt, and today I'm going to be demoing Twilight Inscription, which is a roll and write set in the Twilight Imperium universe, which I think gets overlooked because of TI, the original board game's kind of cult following / reputation for being like an entire day of playing one game, even though 4th edition is a lot more streamlined, and you can actually play it in under 6 hours, guys. But Twilight Inscription is a much faster, much more rules, I'm not going to say rules light, but rules lighter version of the same kind of vibe that TI has. Yeah, it's all relative. It is definitely the most complicated roll and write out there. I'll give it that. I'll tell you that right up. You have 4 boards that you're playing on, so like it definitely has the same TI spirit of make this complicated, make it robust, make it like a very strategic, very fun game that if you are into it, it will provide a lot of replay value. It has all the factions. It's got multiple sides to the boards. You've got a ton of event cards. So like every game you play is going to be pretty radically different. So that is my personal recommendation for board games. RPGs, I've been playing a lot of the Avatar RPG lately. That is a Powered by the Apocalypse system. It has all of the fun flavor of Avatar, and you can play in any era of the Avatar universe. So going all the way back to Kyoshi or pre-Kyoshi, all the way up to Korra or post-Korra. So depending on what flavor and what timeline of Avatar you enjoy, you can play whatever you want. I mean, yeah, and then for card games, we'll do everything. We'll just run everything on tabletop. Flesh and Blood. I will always, recommend Flesh and Blood. A lot of people have heard about it, but they haven't played. That is something that we have been demoing here, as well as we have a demo kit available in-store at any time. At least one of our staff members on any shift knows how to play and can run a demo, because that is one of the main games that we champion at the store for card games. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good games out there, so we could keep the list going forever. But yeah, TI for board games, Twilight Inscription for board games. They both end up with the same acronym, TI. Twilight Inscription for board games, Avatar RPG for RPGs, and Flesh and Blood for card games.
Great recommendations. I haven't played the Avatar one, but we have Root RPG and Masks, both from Magpie, and we absolutely love those. So that's definitely one that's on my list to try out there in our RPG space. I'll have to look more into the other ones as well. So how can people find out more about you? Come visit you guys in person at the store, find you on social media, or if you're any upcoming cons coming up?
We do have socials, so we have Facebook and Instagram. We are the Haven Games on Instagram. I think we're the Haven Tabletop on Facebook. I could have those swapped, but one of them, Games, was already taken by some casino in like Wisconsin or something like. I don't know what it was. We are the HavenTabletop.com. Like I said, on Facebook and Instagram, we're either the Haven Games or the Haven Tabletop. We also have our own Discord, so if you're on our website, there's a Discord link at the Contact Us zone. You can click that. It'll load you an invite to our Discord. We also just joined Threads. We're gonna see if that catches on. We haven't posted a single thing yet. That first post is always so hard. But we are on all of those socials. We also have a TikTok channel, which is at the Haven Games. We also are on YouTube. We stream some of our larger card game tournaments. We've got a few of those coming up. The next con you can see us at will be Spooky Empire. We will also be running their board game room. So we will be doing kind of the same thing we're doing here. It seems like maybe a weird matchup. It's not a board game convention. It's a horror convention for horror movies, horror media in general. But they have a lot of interest, I guess, in board games as well. There's an overlap between horror fans and board gamers. That is at the end of October.
Very cool. Yeah, we have a couple on our list that we're going to record of the spooky style games. So you got some good overlap there that you can run. Great talking to you. And might I make one suggestion for threads?
Yes.
Just roll for initiative on your first roll. First thread. And then you're ready to go. After that, it doesn't matter. After the first one, you're there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, we are live here from the vendor floor with Shattermare Comics to talk about what they've created here. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your guys' self and what you guys have created?
So we are Shattermare Comics. We are based out of Jacksonville, Florida, and we make comic books and manga. Our primary title is Hardly Heroes, so it's an adaptation of our group's long-running D&D campaign. So that's the Dungeons & Dragons tie-in there. It's an ongoing comic series. We're on issue 9. Working on 9 right now. We have issue 8 out.
Hey, my name's Kyle Hill, co-owner of... That was Brian Cody you were just speaking with, if you'd like to say your name.
I'm Brian.
My name's Kyle Hill, co-owner, Shattermare Comics, and writer for Hardly Heroes. I'm also here with Eric.
Hello, yes, Eric Velasquez.
So we started this about 2 years ago. It's going on some time. It's a tongue-in-cheek fantasy adventure. The idea is that you see kind of the hijinks that, you get into, the games you play, kind of in our characters, and we want to invite you into our game. If I'm going to go back to when we started the campaign, our friend Wilson was the DM. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he started the campaign because it was just something he always wanted to do. We were playing it every week. About a year in, fortunately, he passed away. He took good notes, so one of the other players in the game stepped up and became the new DM, and we're still doing it every week, going on 6 years now. And one night after the game, we were talking, he and some of the other guys were really into comic books, and we had this idea to translate the game into a comic book, and, we just said, let's do it.
So you touched nicely on the inspiration, which is going to be my first question of, how to convert the book. What is the process of that of taking these adventures you played and making them into a comic?
It's a process. Like Kyle said, we didn't know a whole lot going into it, so we had to do a lot of research and figure it out. The first thing we did was we sat down and we took Wilson's notes and just our experience playing the campaign, and we did this really detailed outline from all the way at the beginning, from session 1 to the end of what we're calling campaign 1 as we played it, or arc 1 of the book. And then after that, we just went about finding all the artists that we need. We're writers and editors, but we can't draw. Most of our artists are all over the world, like Europe, South America, Atlanta, Georgia. So we found our main artist, Dan Zay, our colorist, Luana Christie, and our letterer, Eric Hurd. And so after that, we took off, did a lot of revisions on 1 because we didn't quite know how everything should be structured and what to look at. And then after that, each subsequent issue was a lot easier because we kind of had our workflow down. We got some good feedback because in the beginning, we were going to a bunch of different comic shops, say, what do you think? Is it easy to read? What the font should be? All that kind of stuff. And now we can come out with a book in 6 months to a year, basically.
We had to start a publishing company for our book, so why not help other people along with, their passions and ideas. I mean, we're not pigeonholing ourselves into the D&D tabletop role-playing world as far as the comics go. A couple other projects that aren't, diversifying ourselves a little bit.
It's definitely a different perspective for everyone that's listening. I have never played Dungeons & Dragons. First time I played was 2 months ago with these guys. It's exciting, another creative art form, because I'm a performance artist. My first degree's in theater. I do musicals, so I enjoy being on stage, performing, creating things out of nothing, making a grand imagination, and that's what Dungeons & Dragons is. So it's pretty exciting that I got to meet them just this past March, so I want to show everyone that's listening, having that outside perspective. You don't have to be hardcore or know anything. You're always welcome. I'm more of a comic book guy, and I just did that recently, too. This past year, started collecting again. It's exciting, we got to meet up, and I like their vision. I like what the book was about, and I love how it came from the heart. It's a wonderful community. They're very welcoming, and that's what it's all about. We want to just give everybody a chance to enjoy this kind of things. To me, it's just a great, projects that we're doing. And just like Kyle was saying about helping others, since we are a publishing company, that's wonderful. We can help spread the word of other people's content creating. They just need that extra step or that door to be open to get their art out. So we're pretty excited getting on the 9th issue here. We got a trade paperback out for the first 6 issues. And that web motion comic, I'm pretty excited about that because I definitely want to do the voices and stuff like that, bring these characters to life and bring another audience to it.
Okay, so the last thing I'm going to ask here, all of you, is we are Tabletop Podcasts. So I want your recommendations for the listeners that they should play, or maybe that we should do an episode on. So anything in the realm of tabletop. So board game, RPG, card game, whatever it is, that is currently has your interest or something that you love. I want to hear your recommendations for us.
The first one is a shameless plug for the Hardly Heroes module, because we're developing a 5th edition D&D module based on our comic book, based on our D&D campaign. We're going to showcase that later in November at Free-to-Play Florida, and people will be able to get kind of a beta version. It won't be fancy, won't have all the art yet, but it'll have the story, the campaign. Of course, you can get the Hardly Heroes volume companion book to go with that. Get that out of the way. So personally, obviously, I'm a big fan of Dungeons & Dragons. I would say if you're new and you want to get into fantasy game, I'm a big fan of Descent. So it's cool. It's kind of like a prepackaged adventure. It comes with all the minis, comes with maps. The newest one they have out even has a companion app that tells you how to do the combat and everything. I would highly recommend Descent because it's simple. Everything comes within the box.
I've been doing 5e now, this one campaign, so that's most of my lion's share of knowledge. I would give a shout out to some guys that we met at Ancient City Con called Three Hound Games. They're developing their own system. I don't know where they are progress-wise on that, but that is something that we played a little, like a beta test of it last year, and it was pretty fun. So I'm sure it's only gotten better since then. That'd be something cool for you guys to check out.
So definitely another unique perspective for you coming from the inside. I haven't played too much of the traditional tabletop that we're talking about, like Warhammer or Dungeons & Dragons, but I definitely have a lot of experience playing definitely tabletops that are not in the mainstream, you would say, not standard Monopoly and Sorry. I have friends that do Kickstarter games, and we play that. Secret Hitler, I enjoy that bluff game where you're trying to find who Hitler is among your group, by certain questions and all that, so that's pretty fun. The most recent one I thought I enjoyed was actually a Ticket to Ride. That was a unique game right there, where the board game is the state of, it's the United States. It's with our train tracks. So you have little tickets that build up destinations. For example, San Francisco to New York. That would be a big one. So you would get the color cards to match all the way up to the trip to get that for the total points. So I definitely enjoy playing different games, getting those experiences. So I definitely am, pretty blessed that my friends, have that kind of uniqueness that we can play all these different type of tabletop games and just get different memories and experiences. Enjoy them all.
If our listeners want to find out and connect with you guys directly or with the comics, kind of find out more information, how can they do that?
We're pretty much everywhere at Shattermare or ShattermareComics.com. So it's not Shadow, it's ShatterMare.com. Pretty much all our social medias, Instagram, Facebook, sometimes I almost said Twitter, it's X now. Find us there. We're building out the YouTube channel slowly, so we don't have a whole lot of content there, but a couple interviews and stuff. If you're in Florida, I'd say we're in a good 20 stores up and down North Florida, down to the Tampa area, down to Vero Beach. Find us at shows. We have some cool exclusive stuff at shows we don't typically have on the website.
We also have a Whatnot presence as well. My name's Latin Heat 777. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Whatnot, and also Shattermare. We're trying to expand on that as we speak. So if you want to check us out, that'd be great. We love interacting with the fans and everybody. To me, it's one giant community. We're all here to help and have a good time.
Thank you so much.
John and I would like to thank not only all the creators and vendors we were able to interview, but also the awesome folks who made QuestCon possible, from the event organizers to the volunteers and sponsors. We also found loads of amazing tabletop accessories and products, which you can see on my Instagram account, Stevies_games.
20-Minute Tabletop is a Morecore Studios production. Theme song by Arthur Rowan, Morecore art by Sita Duncan. Do you want more tabletop gaming fun? Subscribe to 20-Minute Tabletop on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Like what you hear? Leave us a review while you're there or tell a friend. Find out more on our website, 20mintabletop.com. That's the numbers 20mintabletop.com. Or connect with us on Twitter, Threads, and Instagram as @20mintabletop, @20mintabletop. Thank you and roll with fortune. Yeah, we played Flame. We played Frame. Wow, more coffee needed. We played Frame. We